Let's Get To presents Go Go Astros, a focus on H-Town hardball.
Bader is aboard. Now the Yankees have their shot. The big boys are coming up. Yankees down a run with one away in the eighth.
First pitch, and Judge hits it in the air to right. It sends back Tucker at the wall. He crashes into the wall and makes the catch. Bader tags and goes to second, and the throw's not in time. Kyle Tucker took away certainly extra bases and maybe a home run, crashing into the right field wall, and that deep drive by Judge for the second out in the top of the eighth.
I think that was over the line, that yellow line in right field.
And we are back here on Go Astros. Not only are the Astros now up 2-0, but Brian's back. I hope you also read his Substack on last night's game. Brian, first of all, do you just not sleep? Or are you working on these while the game is going? Because they're so in-depth and they're always ready when I wake up.
A, thank you. B, I kind of didn't sleep last night, but that's mostly because I had a 7 a.m. flight this morning. And I made a really smart, my travel plans involved me going away from New York towards Houston. And I apparently passed the Astros plane in the air this morning.
Well, did you wave for us?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Well, let's talk a little bit about last night's game. First of all, I will start with Andy because you and I have always, when we message each other, it was always good Fromber, bad Fromber. I know that we keep talking about seeing him evolve and seeing him mature. He clearly pistoned himself last night. It seems like after that error, he was more locked in than before. He was just making guys look stupid. I mean, what did you overall take from Fromber's performance last night?
I mean, it wasn't quite and Texans fans will appreciate this reference, the Sage Rosenfeld's Rosencopter play, but that defensive miscue was pretty close to being just disastrous for the Astros. And I think the biggest growth that you will see with Fromber beyond pitches, beyond dealing well with certain situations, is that didn't derail him. It actually looked like he got more determined after he made that boneheaded play, which he did last week also, really 2 weeks ago. But it feels like it's happened a lot recently. He didn't trust his curveball. I think Maldonado said something that as well during the first few innings, because I think he was worried about the roof being open, which I'm sure is a topic we'll discuss in a minute.
Oh, we will. I was hoping we wouldn't.
But once he got to the point where he had confidence in that curveball, the Yankees didn't have a lot of chance against him. And I would guess that if you threw him out, I know we don't want any pitchers facing batters 3 times, but if you had thrown him out for the 8th, he would have been just as effective because they were not close to hitting his curveball last night. Overall, really, really impressive, and certainly something the Astros needed as the offense continues to underperform.
Which is what we'll talk to you about next. But Brian, overall, just what you saw out of Fromber, what really impressed you?
Yeah, I mean, I wrote about in the subject how Fromber has constantly gotten better over his career. Each year is more innings with a better ERA. He led the American League in innings pitched this year. He's won a top 5 in ERA in the American League this year. It was an impressive year, and you saw the fruits of that in particular last night. I believe he had 25 whiffs by the Yankees. And on the one hand, the Yankees are a high whip team. On the other hand, they're a bunch of major league hitters who like to hit the ball. And important to note here, 0 home runs allowed last night. And that was critical. That allowed them to get away. That allowed Fromber to get away with letting the 2 runs in on the double error.
All right, let's talk offense. And Brian, again, we'll go with you first. I think the offensive problems feel more magnified because Jose is in that 0 for 23. And of course, I made the mistake of both reading Twitter and listening to Sports Talk Radio and people talking about moving him to 7th in the order, maybe sitting him a day, because that's what you do in an ALCS. But at the same time, with this pitching staff and defense, 3 runs is going to be enough to win a lot of these games that we're going to be seeing. Just overall, what are you seeing out of that? Do you see any positivity And Jose had 2 hits, 2 balls off the bat at over 100 miles an hour that just happened to be fielded. One by a really great play by the rookie shortstop.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it is always frustrating, right, to watch, and this is true. We'll talk about this for the Yankees too at some point here. Hard hit balls find fine glove. So that happened some to Altuve last night. And he made a lot of contact last night, which was different than what we saw in Seattle, where they were able to get him, particularly on up fastballs that he was chasing up out of the strike, up and in. In general, the offense has really struggled. Some of that is, hey, it's really good pitching in the postseason, which we have too. Some of that is, variance swamps everything when you're looking at small samples. We would, have a small segment in this on a weekly show, but it becomes much more magnified in the playoffs. And I think the important thing to think about the offense is that the pitching staff has been good enough to take care of it. They've won 5 straight games despite not getting much offense. And I believe the law of averages will work out and the offense will score a few more runs in the next few games. Fingers crossed, though, I'm willing to put some luck on, hope for some luck on it too, and not just numbers.
Andy, are we having fingers crossed?
No, this all works itself out, right? And there is a certain amount of luck. I know that Luis Severino was whining mightily last night about the luck that
it's almost like Severino
had
never watched a baseball game before in his life, but we'll get to that in a second.
Yeah, I know, but it's would I say I'm concerned with Altuve? Yeah, 0 for 23 is not great, but to your point, it's heightened because it's the playoffs. If it was 0 for 23 in May, we'd go, yeah, he needs to cut that out. But nobody on Twitter, thankfully, is the general manager or coach or manager of a baseball team. So they can say they're going to bench him or move him to 7th or DFA him or whatever Astros Twitter is saying this morning, all they want. That guy who ran on the field like a jackass during the 9th inning last night and hugged Jose Altuve has the right idea. Embrace your Altuve because he's going to hit. And last night, I actually saw some promising signs. Yes, it was an 0 for 4. Yes, he hit into a fantastic double play turned by the Yankees, but that ball was hit at 106 miles an hour. There was another play that I think the shortstop made a fantastic play on. That's going to happen in baseball, but he hit the ball hard. That's a whole lot better than the 3 sliders that were 23 feet outside that he swung at in a row against Seattle in that 18-inning game. So I think progress is being made. I think we all know that he gets juiced playing at Yankee Stadium, especially if Yankee Stadium's going to come at him. He likes to shut that crowd up. So I expect him to start hitting. I think the other thing about the offense is we aren't sequencing, which is a fun little term. Pena is hitting for a good average and good numbers. Bregman is hitting for a good average and good numbers. Alvarez was in the first series, not so much so far in this series, and Gurriel is hitting. You've gotten 3 postseason hits out of Martin Maldonado. There are pieces there. We're just not doing it back to back to back to back. And that's when the offense is going well, when you can follow up a Bregman home run with an Alvarez single or vice versa, with Tucker coming up and knowing he's going to do something. It's painful right now. And I think a lot of it's just luck. It is. But we've scored enough to win 5 games in a row. So I don't know that my fingers need to be crossed because, to Brian's point, it all kind of works out over time.
Especially like it's going to work, it's out or it doesn't. We're not moving Altuve down the lineup. Brian, one more thing on that.
Oh, yeah. I just believe Dusty has so much confidence in Altuve, he's going to try to move him up in the lineup.
Well, I do want to do a quick shout out to Sean Salisbury. I actually really love listening to him. And a guy called in suggesting that Altuve move closer to the plate. The answer was hilarious. He's like, oh, wow, maybe I should tweet the Hall of Famer and let him know the guy on TV saw him too far from the plate. Also, too, you mentioned Altuve getting juice at Yankee Stadium. Of course, Yankee Stadium's used to people juicing, so that's going to be good. Let's talk a little bit about Roofgate. So it turns out no one really knows why the roof is opened. Jim Crane confirmed that it was not an Astros decision to open it yesterday. And then now, because it didn't work out for the Yankees, when I'm 100% convinced they're the ones who asked to have it open, all of a sudden the Astros were lucky to win, despite 2 of those runs being unearned. The only 2 runs they scored being unearned. What do we think about Roofgate? And Brian, I'll let you go first because then I know Andy will finish nice and salaciously, and that sells in this business.
Am I correct here that the roof was open during all the innings last night, right?
I believe that is the
Both when
case.
the Astros were batting and when the Yankees were batting, right?
But we
They
have that
didn't move
massive
back
weather
and
machine.
forth.
Don't forget that.
Yeah, between the game here. So, atmospheric conditions have kind of mattered in baseball since the first day, and it will continue to matter. It's not like, hey, the wind was blowing to left that day in Fenway when, Bucky Dent hit the ball 320 feet. And, so what, right? Luck is a part of baseball. Okay, the Astros have gotten unlucky at times. They've gotten lucky at times. So have the Yankees. It's one thing for us as analysts to talk about it. The real question with the players, right, is do they actually believe it? Because they can actually do things other than luck, and they can do things to make their own luck. One of the things Fromber did last night to reduce the bad stuff in his luck, strike the Yankees out. Maybe the Yankees should do more of that. I hope they don't.
I hope they don't either. And I can't divorce we go back to Jake Kaplan telling me to stay off Twitter. I can't divorce myself from the concept of Yankee fan. When it happens, and it's good for them, they're entitled. When it's bad, it's luck. Andy, overall, where do you see the ridiculousness of all of this?
Well, of course it's luck. There's a great writer. He wrote Hidden Game of Baseball, back in 1984, Pete Palmer, sabermetrician,
Yes.
who said something along the lines of, you need to play 81 games just for your skill to match the luck, to figure out who you are, and then really another 162 to figure out the eventual regular season record, because luck contributes about as equally to skill at this level of baseball. That is even more true in a 7-game series. So is it smart that Alex Bregman recognized that he didn't have to try to crush the ball to center field? He just needed to flick it into the left field boxes? 100%. Is it luck that the wind slapped down Judge's ball in the 8th inning? Okay, great. But it's going to work. It's going to work out or it doesn't, because it's just baseball. The asinine thing about the entire roof gate incident is that Major League Baseball, Rob Manfred's office, exerts its power when it feels like it wants to versus when it needs to. And I go back to last year's brouhaha in Atlanta about the chop and the racist undertones of that chop, where Manfred stood there and said, you know what? This is just a regional game and we don't get involved with the clubs at that level, but somehow they can manage the operations of a stadium that they don't give two shits about 162 games a year. If I were Manfred, the rule would just be, you need to follow whatever rules you have in the regular season. So the rules, and you could get away with that in Houston, because I think the rules are, if the game time temperature is going to be under 80 degrees, the roof is going to be open. In Houston, that happens for about 2 weeks every year. We get a couple of wonderful games in April, and then this happens at the end.
Yeah.
But the fact that the Yankees apparently forced it behind the scenes, and yes, that's allegedly, encouraged it strongly, let's say, and it backfired on them, is just how the dice tumbled last night. And the fact that we are calling it lucky, okay, great. Luck is a giant component of Major League Baseball, and pretending otherwise is just silly.
What's not lucky, though, are the NASA engineers who figured out how to control the weather. And I really appreciate that. Well,
I do enjoy the fact that we gave ourselves a 1,000-year flood in 2017 because we can control the weather.
Yeah.
But also we don't deal with the wind in our own stadium. It's asinine, and Severino was the worst of all. He got lucky. He did, and he beat you. Shut up.
Yeah, it's so funny too, because I was watching, and I don't watch a lot of the post-game stuff, but Harold Reynolds would disagree with it luck because he changed the way he was pitching Bregman. Everybody was out. He went in on Bregman. Andy, one last question on this. Does this, for you, eliminate the sort of Cowboys blue jersey thing? Do you still, are you over the roof being bad luck?
I don't think the roof is bad luck. I think we've had a bad experience with the roof, but the bad experience is based on the circumstances around the roof being opened. As we talked about last episode, famously Bud Selig, who is so popular with Astros fans who remember him, Hall of Famer Bud Selig, forced the roof open, which many Astros fans think cost them games 3 and 4 of the World Series because it hadn't been opened prior to that point in 2005. That's not true. We just didn't win. We won a game last year, as you reminded me. We lost a game last year. We won a game now. So we're now 2-4. We win another one if the roof's open. I mean, it ultimately doesn't matter. I don't believe jerseys buy you unless I'm wearing the jersey. Now, if I'm wearing the jersey, the team's going to lose. But if I draft the guy on my fantasy football team, the team's going to lose. But the Astros don't care because the Astros are professional baseball players and they don't give a crap if the roof's open or not. It's just like anybody else. They don't want to be told what to do. So sure, it should put it to bed. But if Manfred has to come out and make another statement about why the roof needs to be open if we advance to the World Series, it's going to start up again, and it's just stupid.
Brian, let's start 2-0. There's something like 80% of teams that get to 2-0 in a best of 7 make it. Only 4 in LCS history have come back. Only 4 teams have come back in LCS history from a 2-0 deficit. Lance McCullers is out for a silly reason, though all appearances that he's going to be able to pitch on game 4. I actually kind of think it works out actually better for the Astros having Christian Javier, who was part of a no-hitter and could come back on short rest. Overall, how are you feeling about this 2-0 lead and then also Javier start tomorrow?
Yeah. So we won a game by 2 runs and a game by 1 run. Yeah. Luck played a part in that. Absolutely. Right. So, yeah, that's a really good thing, right? That you sort of won some games here, and hopefully you could win them on much more easier because
I would prefer some 11-1 games if we could get a couple of those, just so I could. Yeah.
Well, yeah, 11-1, not 1-11.
Yeah, right. My blood pressure could really, take that. My cardiologist would appreciate that. Didn't appreciate the 8th inning last night. If you'll get the Astros are going to throw out a high quality starting pitcher every single game of this series. And
fully rested, high quality stock.
Right. They'll be they got to figure some things out if we get to game 7, but so do the Yankees, right? And so, the Yankees have their best pitcher, Garrett Cole, on the mound, but the Astros have a fabulous pitcher who had an outstanding season this year and who really leveled up in the quality of his skill in Christian Javier. So I think there's a good chance it's another low-scoring game where pitching dominates, and they're about to play 5 games in 5 days. There's no off day after today. The Astros have a stronger and deeper bullpen than do the Yankees, and therefore it's an advantage to not have the off day for the Astros because they've got more good arms they can put out there to hold off the Yankees than vice versa.
Andy, one of the things that I also thought about too was right now, probably Javier is our biggest straight up strikeout threat. I think he's striking out at, I don't know, Brian, while I'm figuring this out, tell me how many strikeouts per inning he has, or is it per game? Whatever. Do the math in your head though, no paper or pencil. It seems like it lines up pretty well for a team playing against a team that can't hit anything and are striking out at what has to be an alarming rate. They've had 54 outs in the last 2 games. 30 of them have come via strikeout. I think if there's a way to get to 3-0 in this series, it seems like as good a way as any. Andy.
Oh, you were talking to me. I'm sorry. I was laughing that ESPN has just let me know that Javier and McCullers were named for the 3 and 4 games, 3 and 4 in that order. That's breaking news as of 40 minutes ago. Way to go, ESPN app. So I while we talked about, luck being a huge part of this and embracing the chaos, it is not luck. It is how the Yankees designed their team that they've struck out 30 times in the last 2 games. Unless they completely change their approach facing Javier, I can't see that number is going to get appreciably better. Maybe it cuts down to 10 or 11 in this next game, but the reality is they're a high strikeout team, especially in the playoffs so far. And that plays into the Astros' hands. McCullers also can rack up strikeouts should you want him to, famously throwing 24 straight curveballs to advance to the World Series. Those were against, some of these Yankees, not many of them. But, ultimately, I think things favor the Astros. Having a 2-0 lead certainly favors the Astros. The odds of advancing from that point favor the Astros, but there's still 2 wins you have to go get in these next 5 games. So however that works out, if it's an offensive explosion and we win a 10-9 game, okay. But the odds are we're going to see another 3-2, 4-3 type game really for the rest of the series, because these teams are fairly evenly matched offensively and they both have good pitching. We're not facing scrubs the next 2 games, and Garrett Cole, especially if he has a spider tack going, his curveball going, and nasty Nestor Cortez, they're both excellent pitchers. And so hits are going to be at a premium on both sides. It's just a matter of who executes and, that lady luck that we've been talking about. And the only thing you can do as an Astros fan at this point is kind of embrace the chaos. And honestly, for the Astros, we also need to hope that the weather holds out, because there is rain in the forecast for Sunday. It looks like it's dying down according to Weather Underground as of right
we're going to
now.
get to the weather now.
But that would benefit the Yankees. In case anybody's wondering, or if the Yankees start whining about it, having a day off would benefit the Yankees.
Okay, well, let's get into that, and I'll go with Andy first and then back to Brian. We're going to talk about roofs again. Yankee Stadium does not have a retractable roof. The rain is coming Sunday. I challenge you at the real benefit of the Yankees, because I feel like if it were later in the season, later in the series, it'd be more beneficial, but they're going to play 1 game and have another day off and then still be faced with however many before. My question to you guys, go ahead, Andy, you can tell me that I'm dumb.
You're not dumb, but any port in a storm, right? Let's say the Astros win on Saturday and they're up 3-0. The Yankees, as many people are suggesting Altuve need to take a day off and recoup and relax and re-energize, whatever, because they are very much playing on the ropes right now. And it's not a good look for them. I think they're a better team when they're out ahead, and trying to come back, trying to scrap back doesn't look like something a really tired team is capable of doing right now. Now, I say that they could absolutely win the next 3 in a row in Yankee Stadium and send it back to Minute Maid. And that's where the home field advantage comes in, just like it did in 2017 and 2019.
Yeah. Again, I would also say that you have the potential then for Presley to close 4 games in a row if there is that day off, which will, again, my question to you though, and we'll get Brian's take on both of those things, is hypothesizing, if that game isn't played Sunday, when is it played? I've seen them maybe considering to move the game earlier in the day to dodge the weather, which I think seems like the best option.
Mm-hmm.
Without a travel day, where do you put that game? I mean, do we play 1 more in Yankee Stadium, go back to Minute Maid, and then come back to Yankee Stadium if there's a Game 7?
Rob Manfred said we play all the games in New York. Bud Selig said we play the games in Milwaukee.
We're gonna get a neutral site at Citi Field. Is that?
Yeah, that would be the Selig plan. No, I think you just push everything back a day because you'd lose the day between the end of the ALCS if it went 7 in the World Series. But we've already shown that we're going to do that because for whatever reason, I'm sure contracts and ad rates and all that, the World Series dates are locked to start at a certain point and to end by a certain point, I believe. So that's why we've been compressed when you add the strike to the front end of the season. That's why we haven't had off days in either of the series. I just think that if you're tired and scrambling, a day off, a natural rain delay as Bull Durham, a natural disaster, that benefits a team sometimes. And if there is an advantage to be had from that, it's probably the Yankees. I don't think it's a huge advantage, but it's something. I also know that Yankees Twitter will cry, just like they did against Cleveland, that somehow the Astros are behind it because we control the weather again.
Yeah. Brian, let's start with you. I mean, where do you think advantage Yankees, advantage Astros, or advantage no one?
If the Astros win tomorrow, then whatever. It's not officially over, but it's all but over, as long as we keep, Kirk Schilling's anyone having a bloody sock on the mound, we should be.
Or just Kirk Schilling. Just keep him away.
Keep Kirk Schilling away from lots of things is probably a good idea, but that's a different issue. But if the Yankees win and then get a day off, that would be, I think, helpful to them. Sort of, again, they have 3 relievers they really trust, and the Astros have at least 5. So the ability to pitch those guys repeatedly would be something very useful for them. We'll see. I'm sure we'll see Clay Holmes in Game 3, who we haven't seen yet in the playoffs here. We'll see again the top of their bullpen, him and Wandy Peralta in particular. So getting more rest for those guys. It still would be, even if that's the case, it'd still be 3 days in a row, and that would still be an issue, a bigger issue for the Yankees bullpen. But it'd be better in the end for them. They got the day off.
It would be 4 in a row if we went 7.
Yes.
Yeah.
You're right. Thank you.
Okay. What are your thoughts on how they're going to handle it? I mean, do you see the game getting washed, or do you see them looking at the system and trying to maybe move the game earlier in the day, which maybe actually would be good for ratings, I think?
I mean, you'd be moving earlier in the day on Sunday to match up against more NFL games. I don't know if TBS is into that. And like one of the things that Major League Baseball has to consider, it is unfortunately not a super regional in college baseball. College baseball, they do this all the time where they look at the weather and say, like, it's going to rain at 7. Let's play at noon.
Sure.
And get the heck out of here. They don't do this in the majors for several reasons. And one of them is they have big money on the line based on what time they play it and what ads that the TV partners, to use the parlance, say. So I suspect they either play it at prime time, or the game gets banged and they move everything one day later.
Andy, you said that it looks like the weather's changing, though?
It looks like most of the rain would be Sunday evening into overnight. So conceivably, if you started a game at noon, on Sunday, you might be able to dodge it and then still have a game Monday evening, depending on field conditions. It doesn't look like it's thunderstorms. It looks like just a big soaking fall rainstorm, which is good because you don't have lightning delays and all that kind of fun stuff. I think Major League Baseball has another problem on their hands because they did not handle the last rainout really well.
Yeah.
They let people sit in that stadium for 2.5 hours before they made a decision, hoping that beyond hope everything was going to work out, and it didn't. So I think that's going to be a factor too, in how they handled this, not wanting to have that additional egg on their face. I mean, I would assume, but Rob Manfred also seems pretty shameless in a lot of things he does. So.
Yeah. Well, it looks like the game on Sunday is supposed to start. Well, we have the late game. We have the game at 5:07 Central. So that might actually play us right into the weather, unless they wanted to back it up a little bit. I do agree. I'm not sure. It all depends on how much the Yankees and Rob Manfred want to take, basically having Yankee fans sit in the stadium for 3 hours only to tell them to go home again, and how willing they are to do that. Okay. So as we wrap up, first of all, anything else that I missed that you guys want to jump in on?
Ryan Presley's been awesome.
Ryan Presley's making people look stupid. And one of the things I want to talk about, at some point, Brian Abreu has become transcendent. Like it really is. It doesn't matter who you throw out there right now out of that bullpen.
We have lots of good arms. And my other question about Brian Abreu is, what's the shoulder measurement on the suit for him? Do they make suits in his size? Because he's got like 68-inch, shoulders.
Yeah, I think that's something in the office.
He probably shops at wherever defensive end and power forward shop, so it's fine. They don't tell us about that.
Andy, overall, what are your thoughts on Presley and Abreu?
I mean, the bullpen as a whole has given up 1 run this postseason, and that was Javier. So they've been lights out. It hasn't mattered who you've thrown out there. I will give credit where credit is due. Dusty has been masterful. I think a large part of that is to James Click's credit for giving him good tools to work with. He doesn't have really a bad option in the bullpen right now, unless you want to count, I guess, Seth Martinez, who I believe was part of that no-hitter in Yankee Stadium, if I'm remembering correctly. So you hope that continues. It's going to be pretty hard for them to continue to give up nothing. But if there's a team that can do it, I think our bullpen's lined up to do that. The other thing with Ryan Presley is that fans in general, and I know I've been guilty of this before, and I know, Jim, you have, and I'm sure Brian has, we have hardwired memories about certain relievers when they let us down that one time, and they're going to let us down the rest of that time.
Fucking Luke Gregerson.
There's your Luke Gregerson reference. Mine was Dave Smith. It doesn't matter if they're an all-star Hall of Famer. That one time they screwed up, and can't trust them. And I think that most closers suffer from that as well. I know many people who hated Billy Wagner, and now the same people are arguing that he has a legitimate Hall of Fame case. So both things can be true, evidently. But I just, it's been everything from a pitching standpoint has gone exceedingly well for the Astros, with the one exception of the throwing issue that Fromber had yesterday.
Well, he's not going to do it a third time, so that's good.
One would hope. Talk to your psychologist.
Yeah, my shrink and I will definitely dive into that one. I don't see him doing it 3 times, and it's interesting because, like you said, guys, Dusty can really throw a dartboard and get the right reliever, but we might have some issues if the Astros don't, in fact, win all of it at the lineup at the position player construction that Click did or didn't do. Finding anybody that can hit at the DH spot would be amazing, but we're almost out of time. So I had the Astros in 6. I still feel very good about in 6. Brian, you had them in 5. How are you feeling about that?
I had them in 5, and I had Verlander winning 2 games, so I'm halfway there on both predictions.
Andrew, you also had them in 5.
I do, and I don't see any reason to change that right now. I just really hope we go 3-0 before we have to worry about that first loss. So it's a thing.
It does seem like Garrett Cole doesn't enjoy the Yankee media as much as he did Houston media. I almost feel like I feel like he's blinking, get me out of here at media availabilities. I don't know. All right, that does wrap up Go Astros. Again, the Astros 2-0. They have somewhere around an 85% chance of advancing. Fangraphs has them about that, and so does 538, and so does history. So great. Everybody, we'll be back Sunday after Game 3. Go Astros.
Hey, I'm in Houston, so I get to go have real Tex-Mex, not the stuff I get in New York. Go Astros.
Trey Mancini bats 247 in Yankee Stadium, but with a 730 OPS. And if those numbers don't sound impressive to you, they're a whole lot better than what he's done in an Astros uniform. So go Astros.